Good morning, Warren County. During this pandemic COVID crisis, there's been much discussion about our local plans and how the city and county governments have made decisions about closures and reopenings. As I've stated in my emergency resolutions and weekly updates, I have taken the lead from the governor's executive orders and the Tennessee Pledge, which has been posted all across Tennessee for Tennesseans and our residents to follow. Today we are pleased to have with us via teleconference call to the 50th governor of the state of Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee, who will give us some updates and some pertinent information that may be important to our residents as we continue on with this crisis. So we want to welcome Governor Lee today to our teleconference phone call and our live BLT newscast. Thank you. So Governor Lee.
Yes, sir. How are you doing today?
We are surviving, and as well as you. So we are pleased to have you on the line today. You've been an important part of our local planning. And so to kick it all off, I'd like for you to give some words of encouragement to our Tennessee residents and explain maybe a little bit about the Tennessee Pledge and how you came to that solution as a part of a plan of action for the state of Tennessee.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, I can give an encouraging word for sure, because I think that we have a lot of things to be encouraged about in the days ahead. It's been certainly a very challenging season for Tennesseans. I was actually at the White House and gave a little talk on. I was with the president and gave a little talk on protecting the elderly in the midst of COVID, and they were pleased with what we were doing with nursing homes, so he asked me to come up and be a part of a news conference. But I told him and said to the group in the audience, we had a horrific tornado, a lot of loss of life, COVID, and 2 days later we had our first case of COVID, another tornado later in southeast Tennessee. It's just been a very challenging season for us, but I said to that group, I said, you know, Scripture references being hard pressed on every side but not crushed, and that's kind of how I feel like Tennessee has endured the last couple of months, 3 months, hard pressed, but certainly not crushed. And we've made some incredible progress in the efforts to address COVID and every challenge that's come before us. And I feel like we're in a very new season. Very encouraging where the numbers are headed. Finally, in a place where we can begin to have economic activity in the state. We still have a public health risk with COVID-19 that exists, and we've got to be aware of that and cognizant. But I think people are now. They know what they're dealing with, and can make decisions about their personal health and responsibility, and I'm just very, very encouraged with where we're headed with this. So, and a lot of it has been folks in the communities taking it seriously, making the right decisions, doing what had to be done when it was done, and yet staying hopeful. I want people to have hope. This is not a hopeless situation at all. It's very hopeful, particularly as we round a corner and we made the right decisions to put our state in a place where we can reopen our economy, and I'm encouraged.
If you could say a little something about continued testing and the use of masks. For a lot of folks, these masks have become politicized, and I feel like with the masks that have been issued through the state health department offices, our local office as well, clinic, that you'd have not taken that measure to provide these masks if you didn't think they were an important factor in the safety and public health of our citizens.
Well, let me address a couple things there. It's really unfortunate when anything gets politicized, but this whole deal has been nationally and otherwise. That's unfortunate for me because COVID-19 doesn't care what kind of politics you have, and it clearly has been a health challenge. I mean, we've had 100,000 people in this country die from this virus, and that's a real number of people. We've had 350 plus people in the state die. Those are real lives. Those are real people, and so this is real, but it's also something that we all know as people. We face real risk every single day, and we address it appropriately. So there's a couple of things that we actually can do. We can take measures ourselves just to be sure that we're protecting ourselves and our neighbors. Testing is one of them. So I decided early on that Tennessee ought to be one of the most aggressive testing states in the country, and I did that because I looked at data from other countries prior to it coming to the United States, and I saw that there was a pretty good theme that the countries that tested the most had the best outcomes. So we were one of the first 5 states to test in the country. We're one of the top. The Harvard Business Health Review says we're one of the top 7 states in the country that's ready to reopen their economy because of the level of testing we have. What that means is when you test, you know what you got out there, and we need people to get tested because then it just continues to tell us what we have out there with regard to the virus and the spread of it, et cetera. And that's why we've encouraged people to get testing. People say, I'm not worried about my own health. It is very helpful for us to know where there is a virus spread, because that's how we can attack it and keep it from becoming a problem, and we can all continue to keep living our lives and go into work and go into the ball field and doing the things we want to do, but we can do so long as we understand what's happening out there. So testing is very important. I encourage people, even if you don't have any reason other than I just want to help the state understand where we are on this virus, go to the health department and get a test. It's easy to do. It's free. And it provides important information. Masks are to protect someone from you. So wearing a mask, for the most part, unless you have a medical mask, wearing a mask is a way of saying, I'm protecting you from me. It's really an act of protection for somebody else. It's not for you. And now, if everybody had a mask on, then nobody would spread it from one to the other. But I think this politicizing mask is an inappropriate thing to do, because it simply is a way of saying there is a virus, but we're going to keep moving our lives on. We make little adaptations. That makes sense. Respecting that. Honoring at least the 350 people that have died in this state and the more that will, by saying, I'm going to do my part, even if it's just a symbol of, it is more than a symbol because it protects other people from you if you happen to be asymptomatic and have it. But it also says, I'm going to be a part of this. I'm going to protect my neighbors. I'm going to remember the elderly because they really are vulnerable. I'm going to remind everybody that we ought to be a little more careful than we normally are until we get this thing behind us. And wearing a mask is an easy way to do that. So we certainly encourage people to do it and to engage in your community in a way that says, I want to remind everybody that I'm doing my part.
Thank you. In my hand, I'm holding one of the posters for the Tennessee Pledge, and we're hoping to get Commissioner Ezell on a teleconference next Tuesday at this same BLTV live stream. So if you'd like to say a little something about the purpose of the Tennessee Pledge and what it's there for and how it can accommodate the reopening of the Tennessee economy.
I want people to get back to work, and I want people to make a living. I want people that, the idea that the government required businesses to close it was a terrifically difficult decision. The only time a government ought to do that is when they believe there's an imminent danger to the public. And there was a belief that there was imminent danger to the public. But as soon as, in my mind, that imminent danger was lifted, then we had a responsibility to reopen the economy and let people go back to work and open their businesses back up. And so but we need to, The virus it wasn't either real or not real. It either overtakes our society or it is there and we live with it and manage it appropriately. That's where we are. The virus is there. It's still 400 people a day that are contracting it. According to the testing that we have, there probably more than that, but it's real. There's hundreds of people every day that newly contract the virus in Tennessee. That's manageable. Our healthcare system can manage that, but there's a reason that it's manageable, and part of that is because of the actions that Tennesseans have taken to change the way they live a little bit. It's not a new normal that's terribly different than the way we used to live, but washing your hands, wearing a mask, not shaking hands with everybody you see, not packing in venues, just paying a little closer to attention to the fact that this is a virus that spreads from human contact. If you limit human contact, you limit its spread. It's as simple as that. And there's not really much arguing with that. It is a virus. It is there. It's human contact spreads it. If you limit human contact, you limit the spread. We all want to limit the spread. It's less likely to get into a nursing home and kill residents. It's less likely to cause any number of things. So we all want to limit the spread. How can we do that? How can we responsibly do that? If we own a business, we can take the Tennessee Pledge and follow the guidelines that really don't change my business operation that much, but they remind me about how I can limit the spread. If I'm a ball field, if I'm a pool, if I'm a barber salon, a hair salon, if I am a retail store, and I take the Tennessee Pledge, I say, you know what, I want to keep living my life and running my business, but I want to help reduce the spread of the virus so less people die of this by the time they get a vaccine or whenever this thing ends. Less people will die as a result of people making the effort to limit its spread. How I can limit the spread? If I'm a business owner, I can take the Tennessee Pledge and follow these medically appropriate guidelines, and they're pretty simple. And if you do that, we'll limit the spread, and then we can all continue to live our lives and do so with a responsible level of risk and limit the spread of the virus, taking care of our neighbors and ourselves.
Thank you. We're hoping maybe in the next few days or within the next week, there may be a little bit more direction about concerts, county fairs, the organization of and implementation of some of our city ball leagues, community ball leagues. 4th of July celebration has been a big question as well. And how large meetings are supposed to accommodate social distancing, and how we're supposed to work around some of those guidelines as well. So we're hoping that in the next week or so there'll be a little bit more guidance on that. I think you're gonna find that's true. And one of the things that's going to happen ultimately in all this, because we really, I want to get out of the business of guidelines, and we want to get it out there and say here's how we ought to do it, and then not continue to make changes, and because that's not really what anybody else wants either. So we'll ultimately get to a place where we say here it is, here's guidelines. I have felt very strongly that government shouldn't mandate and make people do anything. Like, for example, there's been a lot of talk about churches and coming and going to churches. Churches were never, ever closed in this state, as opposed to a lot of other states. But I made the decision early on, look, there's a real difference between the freedom of religion associated with church and many other things. So we never closed churches. Now, we gave guidelines and we gave suggestions on how they ought to do it, and most churches followed those because they wanted to protect their citizenry. Same way with businesses. These are not mandates. These are guidelines, and they're strong suggestions to protect public health, which most businesses really want to do. So they want information and guidelines, but we want to get out of the business of putting out guidelines. We kind of want to get this done and move forward with, here it is. You will get those guidelines on the last remaining things that are
that still have guidance to them or that have still been encouraged to not operate. And then this issue really becomes one of personal responsibility. Pretending like it doesn't exist or saying it's not out there, really to the 350 families that have lost a family member in this, that would be, that is inappropriate to say that. It really is not fair to that. It's not being truthful to say this virus is all a hoax. It didn't really happen. There's a bunch of people who've lost family members that would tell you otherwise. But however, it was the estimates of how many we would lose were overdone. There were a lot of information that was unknown in the beginning. Now we know what we got. We got a virus. We can mitigate its spread. We can live responsibly. And once we give out these last guidelines about the issues that you're talking about there, it becomes personal responsibility and say, hey, I can be responsible to protect my neighbors and to protect the elderly and to protect the spread of this in my community so that we can manage it and manage it effectively. So that's what I think Tennesseans are doing. I'm proud of them for it.
And we keep encouraging locally on my radio shows that I do each week to encourage that responsibility and civic duty and for people to do the right thing. So to change the subject a little bit, I know the General Assembly will be reconvening here within the next few days. And so I know that we are faced with a challenge on some revenue shortfalls, which is going to impact local government and our operations as well. Do you have any ideas about what the General Assembly is going to do, or to give us a little bit of guidance on where to go with our budget process? So we've been told that, just try to keep a budget as close to last year, figure on our, zero additional revenue, and then make adjustments throughout the year with the possibility of some money coming from Washington or from Nashville to meet those shortfalls. So what's your take on that, Governor?
Yeah, I think we all got a challenge ahead of us, some more than others, depending on where you are and what your local budget is. Some communities have fared fairly well through this downturn, and some not so well. But here's what I'd say: we knew, my administration, I knew that back in March when we passed the current budget that's about to be changed again. I knew it was going to be tough on counties, and in fact, in our original budget, if you remember, we pushed $100 in my State of the State back in January. I said we need to give $100 million back to counties and municipalities, and so we had proposed $100 million to push back to counties and cities to help with their budgets because of the budget surpluses we had. Then coronavirus hit. And I could foresee, and everybody else could foresee, that the economy was going to take a big hit. So in our last budget, we decided to push $200 million to counties and cities. And there's a grant process in place for all of that. The budget's about to be upgraded again. And I don't know exactly where it's going to land. Part of that's because the federal money has not been, we haven't been given complete guidance on that money and then what it's going to look like, what we can use it for. But I will say this, long before we had an economic crisis, I believed that we should allow counties and cities to, when there's a surplus, share in that surplus, and when there's a real need, share in the relief. So you're going to be seeing relief in the ways of dollars coming to cities and counties, and they're going to need it because your revenues are going to be challenged. I think the state will face the same thing that you do, which is we're going to try to have a budget that doesn't have any increases in it. And obviously there's some little things you have to do, but for the most part, our approach to the budget, and I believe the General Assembly's approach to the budget, is going to be cutting everything back and having as virtually no and as little as possible increases from what we had last year, because our revenues are clearly going to be down, and we're going to have to make up that shortfall somehow. So we want to help cities and counties do that as well, but I think we're all in the same boat. We've got to be incredibly frugal. We've got to be incredibly diligent and disciplined in the way that we approach this next budget. But we do believe there will be federal funding that will allow us to add to the state funding that we want to push out to counties and cities.
Thank you. I know you're limited on time today. Have you got any input or insight on our census? I'm going to be taping a census segment with BLTV here shortly, and the number of participants filling out the census has not been what we expected it to be. And I think the pandemic has laid another layer of complication on top of what we're doing. But if you could stress the importance of the census to the state of Tennessee and to local governments, that would be an important factor to get out on this program today.
Yeah, we need to get that word out there, and there are a number of things that the state's doing, and even the federal government. Obviously, you've seen that through their public relations campaigns. But the bottom line for me as governor of Tennessee is, if people will participate in the census, then we get an accurate counting of who is in our state where, and it allows us to have the right representation in Washington, D.C. It allows, federal funding, programs that come from the federal funding to us, the amount of, really it's the direct relationship between Washington, D.C. and the state comes as a result of our representation of the numbers of people that we have to Washington, D.C., and where they are and how they're distributed across the state. It's beneficial to us to have an accurate count and accurate information about the people that live in our state. So taking the census is, people think it doesn't matter. It actually does matter. It benefits our population and our communities. It benefits rural communities. It benefits the big cities downtown, so people need to engage.
Thank you, sir. Just as a little follow-up on a couple of things, I know this crisis has put a huge burden upon you and your staff, and I know, being a religious man like myself, that a lot of things have weighed heavily upon you. Warren County, we've just kind of taken grips of what we've been handed. I put together a preparedness team and an economic recovery team very early. And so my group has worked diligently to try to contain the number of cases and mitigate everybody from the school system and our feeding programs and the senior centers and our jail and our health department and our hospitals, our local media outlets, our EMS. We've all worked diligently together, cooperatively together, in order to make this thing as successful as we possibly can with the crisis that we have faced. We know the burden has been heavy upon you. So from Warren County, we want to thank you, but I also want to ask you, what can we do as Warren Countyans to help you continue on to be successful in battling this COVID pandemic crisis that we are all facing?
I appreciate, Jimmy, you saying that. You're right. It's been quite a challenge for all of us. And you talked about all of your folks, your elected officials, your private sector, your nonprofits, your EMS, everybody working together. Well, I've told people so many times, we will do everything humanly possible to save lives and livelihoods. Medical challenge we have, the health crisis we have, and the economic crisis we have. I'm going to do everything humanly possible to mitigate that for the people that live in this state. But I also get up every single day and ask the Lord for favor. I ask him to save lives in this state. I ask him to grant us favor that we will have the outcomes necessary. And I ask people to pray with me too. We can work. We don't just ask God to give us favor and not get out there and do all we can humanly possible. But you all are doing a very very respectable, a very good job down there. I mean, your team has worked together. You all have come together as a community to attack this locally. It's complementary. I know that you've been back and forth in communication with our team. You know how to work with my office, and that's been a very good thing for your community, because the efforts we're doing, we're really hoping to just complement and support, whether it's getting PPE to your local first responders or nursing homes, public health, working with your local health directors. We want to be a support, and the best way that you can help the state is by doing exactly what you're doing, which is working in your locally, making it happen on the ground right there. Because if you guys mitigate the spread in your community, if you guys provide good guidance about take the Tennessee Pledge guidance and get it out to your businesses, if you guys can keep the economic engine running there while you mitigate the spread, if you all can make it happen in Warren County, then you are adding to the state's ability to make it happen all across the state. And, I tell you what, I'm really proud of some things in Tennessee, and I'll finish up with this thought process. We have one of the lowest death rates per capita for COVID in America. We're the 16th largest state, and last time I checked, we were 41st in death rates per capita, which means the way we've attacked it in this state, we've saved lives, a lot of them. And I'm very proud of that fact. But we're one of the last states in the country to actually close down our economy, and one of the very first ones to open it up. Our people out there are doing something right. It's not me doing something right. It's Tennesseans doing something right to allow us to have some of the best outcomes in the country from a health perspective with regard to COVID, but also some of the best outcomes in the country with regard to our economy and keeping it open. And that doesn't happen by accident. There's 50 states out there, and we're compared to all of them. And having some of the best numbers in the country and being touted as one of the top testing states in the country and one of the lowest death rates in the country and one of the first to open our economy in the country, those are very important to the people of Tennessee. But the only reason it happens is because places like Warren County are getting it done. They're taking it serious. They're getting back to work and appropriately doing so, but they're recognizing that we can do it in a way that continues to keep our death rates low and allow our economy to move forward. So y'all just keep doing what you're doing, because it's working.
Well, thank you for being a part of our team. I'm in constant contact, as you know, with your office and your staff and your economic recovery group. I stay in close contact with Washington as well. I feel like communication and keeping that line of information open and relevant and getting it out there to our citizens is extremely important. And
That's
so our
right.
local media groups have been exceptional in that, and I think that's been part of our success. But you've been a really big part of that by giving us direction and giving us encouragement. And I hope the Tennessee Pledge will continue to give us leadership and allow us to continue the reopening successfully, and that this virus once again will be contained at some point, and Tennessee will be back to business as usual.
That's right. We'll get there, and meanwhile, we'll work our way through a challenge like we always do, and I feel like that's what we're doing right this minute. So I really appreciate the chance to be on the call and to catch up with you. And there's so many people in your community that I know and love. Y'all, I've had some great opportunities to interact with that community over the last 2 years. Y'all know that. I've been there a bunch of times, and I'll be back, and we will have an opportunity to reengage. But meanwhile, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So I want to thank Governor Lee for joining us today in this teleconference. Just as another note, as most of you know, yesterday was Memorial Day. And so let us remember the fallen heroes and their families, as we face another battle with this unknown enemy. Most of the events yesterday were canceled in memory of that occasion, but we can reflect upon those who gave the ultimate sacrifice to preserve American freedom. I want to give a shout out to the current members of the National Guard and to our Army and Navy medics that are across the nation helping to stem this tide of the pandemic and are serving basically as medics in hospitals and in health departments doing testing all across this nation. They're putting their lives in danger for the freedom of our American people. I want to share a quote from Ronald Reagan that I shared on the radio this morning. The U.S. and the freedom for which it stands, the freedom for which they died, must endure and prosper. Their lives remind us that freedom is not bought cheaply. It has a cost. It imposes a burden. Just as they are willing to sacrifice, so too must we. In a less final, less heroic way, but be willing to give a part of ourselves. So with that being said, I want to recognize a couple of members today. We've got Pat Williams from the Health Department to give us an update. And then we have Nolan Mean, the City Administrator for McMinnville, to give us a little update on the city.
Good morning. I'm Pat Williams, Nursing Supervisor for the Warren County Health Department. Currently, we have 21 active cases or positive cases of COVID-19 in Warren County. COVID-19 testing continues at the Health Department. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Everyone is welcome to come. Whether you're having symptoms or you just want to be tested, it is available for everyone. It's a very simple process. You don't have to even get out of your car. You drive to the parking lot. You'll be directed around to the testing center. You stay in the car. We obtain a small amount of information from you. We test you and then it's done. And in about 2 to 3 days, you will get your test results. So we encourage everyone to please come get tested. Also at the Health Department, free masks are available from the state of Tennessee, from the governor's office. Everyone is welcome to come and get a mask. They're available, one per person. You can just drive to the front door of the Health Department and we'll be glad to give you however many you need for you and your household. So feel free to come by and pick up your mask, and God bless everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Mr. Haley, and thank you, Governor Lee, for taking time to be here with us today. We all appreciate that. I'm Nolan Meng, City Administrator for the City of McMinnville. I'm here to discuss city operations specifically. We're currently operating at level 4 of our COVID-19 action plan, with level 4 being normal operations and level 1 being the highest or most critical state of operations. This action plan is intended to escalate gradually to proactively respond to changes in the situation while heeding the guidance and recommendations of our state and local public health officials. At level 4, the biggest change is that our lobbies are reopened at 202 Bell Street for utility bill and tax bill payments, and 1266 Belmont Street for planning, zoning, building, and yard sale permits, as well as public works inquiries. The police station lobby at 204 Red Road will be open as well. Utility bills can also be paid online at our website, mcminnvilletn.gov, by drop box at 101 East Main Street or 202 Bell Street, or at several banks throughout McMinnville that accept city utility payments. The following are reopened: all classes in the Wellness Center at the mall, but at reduced capacity to allow 6-foot minimum between patrons. Please call ahead to make reservations to guarantee a spot due to reduced capacity. The bathrooms at Riverfront Park and the Civic Center are open, and the skate park, tennis courts, and all ball fields with maximum of 10 people at any time. The playgrounds and the ghillie pool remain closed. However, The Parks and Rec staff is currently working on a plan to reopen the Gilly Pool based on recent guidance provided by Governor Lee through the Tennessee Pledge and the CDC. We'll likely know later this week if opening the Gilly Pool is a possibility or not. As soon as we know, we will communicate the details of the plan. That being said, we will have a need for lifeguards for the Gilly Pool. Applications can be found on our website, again, mcminnvilletn.gov. You can also call Parks and Rec at 931-473-1212 for more information. Work continues on the Civic Center, additional bathrooms at Pepper Branch and Ramsey Parks, the dog park near Pepper Branch Park, and the City Hall elevator. New and ever-changing guidelines from various agencies, executive orders from Governor Lee, and local conditions have all guided our response thus far and will continue to do so. That's all I have for today. Again, thank you to our employees for your understanding, your flexibility, and your unwavering commitment to getting the job done. And thank you to the public as well for your understanding and flexibility as we work through this unprecedented pandemic together. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact us at 931-473-1200 or message us on Facebook. Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank the 50th governor of the great state of Tennessee for giving us a word of encouragement today as we kind of face the unknown that lies ahead of all of us as Tennesseans. His proven leadership does matter, and we all look to him for guidance in the next step to returning to normalcy. Together, we are American strong, Tennessee strong, and Warren strong. As we continue with the next steps of the Tennessee Pledge and the great reopening, we still wish to stress common sense and compliance with guidelines. I urge all residents to be cautious and not reckless in your behavior. Please respect the health and the rights of those who are wearing masks and doing social distancing. It is the right thing to do. It's not a political statement when someone is looking out for the best interest of others. Just a reminder on the county side, essential county services will continue to be open. We are still on abbreviated schedules at the courthouse and at my admin building on Tuesday and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 12 noon by appointment. And so we're also working with the Supreme Court Justice Bivens about the reopening of the courthouse and those court dates, but we await that guidance. Right now, we're trying to limit the number of people in the public access buildings in order to protect employees. I'm working with my safety coordinator, David Britton, to transition into a June schedule on more full-scale operations to be reopened. In the meantime, the courthouse and admin building, if you have questions about those offices or getting an appointment with that elected official or director, please call those offices or my office at 931-473-2505. In the meantime, I'm limiting the number of public meetings in my buildings unless constitutionally required. County committee meetings and commission meetings will resume in June, but with guidelines. I must reiterate that all the policies that are put into place are to protect our civil liberties, not to detract from the principles of democracy. On this day after Memorial Day, let us not forget the part we play in this freedom formula. Neither the president nor the governor nor myself has asked anyone to do any more than do the right thing. To leave you with another quote from Ronald Reagan, freedom is the right to question and change the established way of doing things. It is the continuous evolution of the marketplace. It is the understanding that allows us to recognize the shortcomings and to seek solutions. Freedom is a recognition that no single person, no single government has a monopoly on the truth, that every life is infinitely precious, that every one of us put on this earth has been put here for a reason and has something to offer. Thank you, Warren County. Thank you, residents. Thank you for all the employees, the first responders, my first line of defense, and the media for allowing this exchange of information, not only from me today, but also from the governor of the state of Tennessee. Thank you for cooperating. Thank you for the Tennessee Pledge, and thank you for following the guidelines that have been put in place to protect all of us.